Hello friends, welcome to my channel. Welcome to Dev with Excel. All right. In this video we are going to be solving exercise 3.19. That's the step 7 of the phonebook database. Previously we solved some exercises on 3.18. That's the step 6, right? And we saw how we could implement the instructions, the exercise, how what we're asked to do, we're able to get them done properly. All right, so this is exercise 3.19, and here is the exercise we have. It says expand the validation so that the name stored in the database has to be at least 3 characters long. It also says that expand the front end so that it displays some form of error message when the validation error occurs. Error handling can be implemented by adding a catch block as shown below. And then it says we can display the default error message returned by the mongoose, even though they are not as readable as they could be. So we should be expecting something like this on the front end coming from the database, right? That's if we put in a name that is not up to 3 characters long. And also, okay, so before we start this, we need to just quickly make some changes in our code, right? So let's go to the top of this page. So it says validation and ESLint. So let's confirm that in our post request, we have this line of code, right? So I'll simply just go to the VS Code now to ensure that. All right, so here's my VS Code, and this is DB step 7, which is the setup folder for this exercise. So currently it is just a duplicate of step 6, right? Nothing different, no differences, right? So in this exercise we are going to be updating this step 7 to the exercise requirements, right? So let's just go to the index.js for us to confirm that in our app.post we have what is given in the notes. Okay, so here we have this. Yes, if body.name is undefined, we should return this. Okay, so let's also cd into this setup folder. So I'll simply just copy the paths and then cd into it. And then we could just do npm run dev. All right, so let's go back to the instruction, to the notes rather. Okay, so coming back to the instruction, it says expand the validation so that the name stored in the database has to be at least 3 characters long, right? Now we already have this in the notes given. So somewhere around here. So here we simply need to go to the person schema and then make some necessary edits, right? So we are going to be making the minimum length, in our own case 3. It won't be 5 as it were here. So we could just copy this. Let's just copy this object and then let's go to our models and then click on person.js, and then here where we have string here, we could just remove string and then paste the entire object we have, right? And then remove that extra comma. So here we can see that we have minimum length and then we change it to 3. So this means that for any name input that is less than 3, it should not be received, it should not be accepted, right? Okay, so we have this right now. What else do we need? Okay, still coming down. Okay, so I think we already have this, the error handler using the next function. We already have that. Let's expand. Okay, so we shall be coming back to this point, right? So okay, so I think we have that now. Let's go back to the VS Code. Our code is currently running. Let's test our code using the Thunder client. So we've been using the Thunder client ever since we started this FullStackOpen course. I think we started using it after some exercises, right? Because we first of all tested with, I think we used the REST client and we also used one other one, which I'm not so sure at this point. But we've been using Thunder clients almost at the beginning of the course. All right, so let's see if we can make a post request. So we click on post, and let's see if we can post a name that has just two letters. So let's say SP, and then let's click on send. So this gives us an error, validation error. It says person validation failed. Name, part name SP is shorter than the minimum allowed length. All right, so this is awesome. You've been able to achieve this. Go back to the instruction again. Let's see what next we can do. Okay, let's just go straight to the instruction. All right, so it says we should expand the validation so that the name stored in the database has to be at least 3 characters long. So we can see that we try to push in a name that is just 2 characters long, and it's resulted in an error, right? So we are going to be fixing that. But before we fix that, let's see how we can do this next exercise. It says expand the front end so that it displays some form of error message when the validation error occurs, right? So here we could see that we had validation error here. We need this to be displayed on the front end. Now at this point, I think we've settled the back end aspect, at least for some parts, right? But now we need to get this validation error on displayed on the front end, displayed on the front end. Okay, so that's what we shall be doing now. So here is what we can do. We go back to our VS Code, and then we are going to be using a file, a setup folder from the part 2 phone book, and we are going to be using step 12, right? Because here the step 12 here, it's more like the modified code that deals with error handling, right? So we are simply going to be copying the path, and we'll be working with step 12. So let's cd into step 12, right? So while that is trying to come up, let's check the instruction again. It says expand the front end so that it displays some form of error message when a validation error occurs. Okay, so let's come here and then let's say cd and then paste our paths. Then we do npm run dev. So let's allow this to come up. Let's just give it some time. Okay, now we have it here. So we are simply going to be clicking on this link that takes us to localhost 5173. Okay, so here is what we have in the front end setup folder, right? So this is what we have. So at this point, the front end is not connected to the back end, yes, yet it's not integrated to the back end. So there are some few changes we need to implement here. Um, Firstly, we come to the step 12 here, and then looking at this vites.config.js, we need to do some editing here. So in our step 10, we did quite some number of edits here to connect the front end to the back end. So I'll simply just copy some of the codes that we used here. So here we simply we use this code. So I'll just use that and then paste it here as well, and then save. And also in the step 10, under the services, I think, yes, so here we replace this entire endpoints here with this API slash person. So we are simply going to copy this API slash person and then use it in our step 12. So I'll simply just come to SRC here, service, name.js, and then comment this and then paste this. So let me save this. Let's see if this is going to help us to connect the front end to the back end. Okay, coming back to our, yes, so we have this, right? So these are currently the data we have. So we could just delete a lot of them. We don't need this. We don't need this. So I was just trying to test the code implementations, right? We don't need a lot of this, right? Let's just take out what we don't need. We could as well just leave it, but let's just see how we can work with this. Okay, so we have 3 data here, right? So what we need to do is let's see if we can before we do that, okay, let's see if we can actually push in some data into this database, right? So let's write a name. Let's call it Jude with a number of 67, and we click on add. So it says Jude is successfully added, right? And we can see that Jude here is successfully added. But what if we want to add a name that has just two characters? Let's say we have KO with a number 54. Let's click on add. That does not work. So let's go to the developers tool and see what's wrong. So it says error updating the number, request failed with status code 500. Okay, so that is that. So how do we fix this? I think at this point we are through with the front end. We could just close this part, and then also, okay, we are not really through with this part of the front end, but with this file, yes. Okay, now going back to the back end, we go to persons.js. So what we can do here is we come to index.js, and then we want to ensure that when we pass in a name that has less than 3 characters, we get a pop-up here that tells us that this name is less than 3 characters, right? Because as we can see, as we saw, when I tried to put in KO here, it didn't work, and we got this error here, right? But we want the error to be displayed at the top of this screen here. So what we can do is we could just come to this index.js, and then here we have the error handler. Okay, so here we have the error handler here, right? We can see this is the error handler function. So there's a part in the notes that tells us what to do. So we can see that everything has been laid down for us, right? Very easy. We could just use what's in the notes. So in the notes, we have this, right? So we could just add this to this, and then let's add this to our error. So so this is this. Let's see if this works now. I'm not so sure it is going to work, but let's just try it. Let's refresh. So let's say we have KO and we have 1 2, and we click on add. So it says error updating the number, still the same thing. Okay, so what we can do is this: we go to the front end. The front end, that's step 12, and inside this step 12, we go to app.jsx, and where we have name service dot create, that's where we are concerned with. Okay, name service dot create, yes. So we are simply going to be removing this catch error here, right? This dot catch here. We can just comment this, because I love to comment on codes first. Then if everything works, then I remove all the comments, right? I don't really like to delete code while still trying to get exactly what to do, right? So here, what we can do is this: we could actually just comment and say dot catch. So okay, so we could actually just copy, we could just use what we actually have here. Okay, we can just use what we have here. Then let's take away the console error. Let's also take away this. Okay, so what we actually need now is we need to use set error message. Here we have set success message, the same way we have set error message. So I think we have one here, yes. So we could just use this set error message function, and then we type it here. Let's type it. Let's say set error message. Then with a bracket, we simply just target error dot response dot data dot error. Having done that, we want it to last, to get displayed on the screen for some seconds, right? So we use a set timeout. So let's use a set timeout. Let's use 4,000 milliseconds, right? So inside this part here, what we simply just target is we target the set error message. So we copy this and then we paste it here, and then we give it an empty string. So that means that it's going to at first get displayed, then after 4 seconds it becomes an empty string. That means it disappears, right? So that's just the idea. Let's see if that works fine. So let's refresh this. Let's type ko and let's give it 1 2 and let's click on add. So it says person validation field name part name ko is shorter than the minimum length required, right? So that works, right? So if we try to put in a name that is up to 3, let's say KIO, or let's say Kel, this should work. It says Kel is successfully added, and as we can see it here, it's successfully added here. So let's go back to the instruction and see if we've successfully done everything. Okay, so we've been able to validate so that the name stored in the database has to be at least 3 characters long, and also we've been able to integrate this with the front end, right? So I think you've been able to solve exercise 3.19 successfully. All right, friends, so here is it. um with this, I'll simply just say see you in the next video. Bye.